Kenya Tourism Conference. We also have Dalma Sakali in Nakuru and Alan Ochanda in Kakamega County. I want us to start over with Tobias Chanji. Tobias, good morning. Tell us about the conference that is supposed to happen between the Uganda-Kenya Tourism Conference.
Very good morning, Fatia. Indeed, the Kenya Coast Uganda Delegates Conference will be starting this morning. That has brought together about 100 Ugandan agents, especially hoteliers and tour operators. Remember that this has been done in conjunction by the Kenya Coast Tour Operators, Kenya Tourist Board, and also Ugandan Tourist Board, together with the Ugandan Consulate, to just find synergies of what complement each other region in terms of tourism. Now, the Ugandans jetted in yesterday from the Entebbe Airport in Uganda through the Mombasa the more international airport here in Mombasa. And remember that the Ugandan airline usually has flights directly from Entebbe Airport in Uganda to here in Mombasa. So once they jetted here yesterday, they had an opportunity to tour the city of Mombasa, several sites that included Fort Jesus, Old Town, etc. And now today, the Kenyan will have an opportunity to just showcase through the exhibition of what the Kenyan coast has, especially the counties of Kilifi, Mombasa, and Kwale. Then tomorrow, the delegates are expected to tour Kilifi County. Then they'll be winding up their 5 days visit with Kwale, that is in Diani, on Saturday and Sunday. Remember that Diani has been voted as the best beach in Africa 5 times now, and there's so much that they'll be showcasing. Then come next week, I will also have some delegates from Kenya who will also be going to Uganda to visit some of the places, of course, including Jinja, the Speke Falls, and also to see some of the gorillas in most of the Ugandan forests. So here after this, we'll be heading to one of the hotels here in Mombasa, where the conference is starting this morning, to just tell us, or viewers, what will be happening, and also on matters exhibition, what the tourism sector has to show the outside world. Remember that in recent times, Kenya has received a lot of tourists, especially from Eastern African friends, that is Uganda and also Rwanda, in terms of weddings, among others. Fatia.
Right, Tobias, maybe you could just tell us some of the leaders and dignitaries that we're expecting at that tourism conference, and of course the importance of it being a Uganda-Kenya tourism conference. Also, what is the importance on it?
Of course, those that are expected to be there will be Kenyan leaders, especially from these 3 counties. We're expecting that the new CS for tourism will be around, but we're told he's out of the country. Then on the Ugandan side, of course, they'll be led by the consulate, who's representing Ugandan here in Kenya. But the importance of this tour is that now the tour operators from Uganda will be here sampling out some of the historical sites and also what Kenya sells most. Remember that the difference between Uganda and Kenya is that Uganda is a landlocked country. Though they have Lake Victoria, they might not be having a sea. So there's so much that they'll have to sell back in their country once they go back to Uganda. Fatia.
Finally, Tobias, do we expect such conferences from other East African countries now that we have 7 members in the EAC?
Well, as I said earlier, some of the countries that have also been thronging, especially in the coast region here in Kenya, apart from Uganda, we've also seen an influx of Rwandese. The Rwandan tourists have been coming here, and especially they've offered a big market in terms of weddings, as they've been conducting their weddings mostly here in the coast region, whether Mombasa, whether Kwale, or even in Kilifi. So this is an opportunity also to showcase what the region has in terms of tourism. Remember that initially, before the COVID-19 struck, Kenyan coast had also looked for markets that were not traditionally has, that include the Eastern Europe countries like Romania and Ukraine. But with the advent of the war between Ukraine and Russia, we've seen that the region has lost that market. And now this timely has to fill the void of the market that was lost by the Ukrainians. Fatia.
Right, Ochanda, Tobias Chanji, rather. Thank you so much for that. Of course, it's very timely. It's timely, of course. It's during the festive season to expect, of course, such a conference to be happening. Now, I want us to go to Kakamega County and talk to Alan Ochanda, where we understand First Lady will be in the area together with the CS of Environment, Soipantuya, on a tree planting event. Alan, good morning.
Well, Fathia, good morning to you. It's a chilly morning in Kakamega County here. It's been raining all night, and so, but this morning, of course, coinciding with this tree planting exercise spearheaded by the First Lady, Rachel Ruto, and of course accompanied by CS Environment, so to remember that is actually doing the exercise in the Kakamega forest. Remember, this is actually an iconic forest, one of the few remaining forest, tropical rainforest here in Western Kenya. Remember, this is actually famed with being a key habitat for different varieties of butterflies and, of course, birds, thousands of species of birds. Of course, this is actually also a UN habitat zone that has actually been really been put under that tight, of course, what we can call like tight care by the government and, of course, the UN. And so we are expecting that in a couple of minutes, by around 10 a.m., we are expecting the First Lady to touch down here, and also the CS Environment, and of course they'll be spearheading the tree planting exercise. Of course, there's also in tandem with the requirement of the 10% forest cover, so it will not come at a better time. So here in Kakamega is actually the only forest here within Kakamega, and of course downway, of course, on our way to Webuye, to Bungoma, we also have the Malaba forest. It's actually just sort of one at some given time was actually one forest with Kakamega, but of course due to the population surging, then it actually became disintegrated from this particular forest. And so from there, Fathia, we're expecting when the First Lady and the CS Environment touches down, we are expecting a lot, because of course after the tree planting exercise, we expect them to have some function here where we shall have some speeches, of course, from them here. What we expect from them, if at all, is just the tree planting exercise alone or any other initiatives. Of course, with the CS being around, we expect much more apart from the tree planting exercise. Fathia.
Finally, Alan, what do you think is the essence or importance of this tree planting process?
Pardon, Fathia.
Just asking, what do you think is the importance or essence of this tree planting process?
Well, Fathia, we are just actually looking at the country. Of course, as a large percentage, a large chunk of the country can see has actually been reeling from the drought. And case in point, like a place like Kajiado, they say is actually not really experienced rainfall for the last 3 years. And of course, that is actually just coming from that world workshop actually in Egypt, just ending the other day. We can see that what is actually happening is actually the drought, the climate changing. So with such initiatives, just ensuring that our forest is actually kept alive, ensuring that the forest cover by planting those trees, then we are mitigating and ensuring that in future we do not really experience such drought that we've seen in the past, and of course are really ongoing in some other parts. Of course, remember that droughts and famine, and of course the climate change is actually not just a one-day event. It's actually a gradual thing. Actually, it starts from even logging, where people cut trees aimlessly and do not even replace those trees. So such initiatives here are actually aimed at ensuring that such forest cover is actually kept at that particular desired percentage of 10%, and even just exceed it. Remember that the neighboring county of Vihiga has actually exceeded that forest cover, and so with such initiatives here, ensuring that our forest actually, the cover is actually at a minimum of 10% or even surpassing it, then we're ensuring that for our generations to come, then we shall be averting that issue of drought. famine, and of course that climate change that is actually normally occasioned by such acts like logging and just depleting our forests for no good reason.
I mean, Alan, is there any involvement of the county government?
Well, Fathia, being just a stone throw away from the county government offices, and of course in the outskirts of Kakamega County, it's actually hardly 5 kilometers away. We're expecting that when the First Lady touches down here in the CS environment, of course, these are actually officers from the national government, and we're expecting that they are actually working hand in hand with the county government. But remember that Kakamega County, just like Mombasa County, was actually the last to have the gubernatorial elections, so that even occasioned and slowed down the nomination of the CECs and the chief officers, and so the governor just nominated the persons to fill those positions of CECs and chief officers in those particular areas. And so we are expecting that maybe, if at all any representative from the county government will be coming here, then it should be the CEC in charge of environment from the old dispensation. Remember that from the administration under the former governor Wycliffe Oparanya, but not the new CECs. But we also expect that maybe the governor will be making his way here, the deputy governor and other officials from the county, because of course it really calls for a cooperation between the county and the national government. Fathia.
Kakamega, thank you so much for that. Let's go to Nakuru County and talk to Dalmas Sakali. Dalmas, good morning. We know there's some chief officers' cases in court. Just bring us up to date with that.
Good morning. Like you've said, of course, I'm coming to you live from Nakuru County, just giving an update on what is happening in this county. And it seems to be a really tough time for the newly elected governors in this context. Of course, I'm talking about Susan Kihika, Nakuru County Governor, especially as regards formulation of her government in terms of county executive committee members and, of course, the chief officers, with all the appointments to the two being challenged in court, of course, citing various reasons. Of course, it began with the 10 names that were appointed by Governor Kihika to the County Executive Committee being rejected through a case challenging the appointment, of course, in a high court, of course, citing among so many other issues to do with ethnic imbalance and cultural diversity issues around the same. And of course, like earlier on reported from us here, the case is actually set for 5th December, that is 2022, for determination. And of course, talking to members of the county assembly and other stakeholders here, religious leaders, advocates, and so on, that essentially might mean that the county, that is Nakuru County, and of course Governor Susan Kihika, might not be able to have her government in place, most likely by the end of this year, due to the fact that the case is supposed to be determined on 5th December, and there are chances by then the county assembly will have taken a break. Of course, maybe if there'll be special sittings in that regard. And even after that, the vetting process for the county chief officers just began. That is on Monday this week by the Committee on Appointments, of course, of the County Assembly. But even before the process could get halfway, another case challenging their appointment was taken to court, and we expect the case to be continuing today. Of course, amongst the issues that have been raised by the petitioner, Stephen Oduor, include issues to do with the redesignation of those appointments to various dockets. Of course, issues to do with some of the names appointed to be chief officers were interviewed for a different position and later on appointed to head a completely different docket. Of course, being a genuine concern from the petitioner in this case. And of course, there are so many other issues that have been raised. And yesterday we were talking to advocates of course, representing the county government and Governor Susan Kihika, who are saying that the county is actually in crisis due to these cases that are stopping the appointment of chief officers and CECMs to, of course, mean that the government of Nakuru will not be constituted, of course, without the two major officers. And, of course, we'll be following up what will be happening today in the courts to just understand the kind of defense that will be filed by governor and the county government, of course, being expected to file their defense as regards the chief officer's case that is expected to continue being had today. But even as that is happening, it's also important to report that the vetting process for the chief officers, despite the case, actually went on Monday. And as we are talking now, already 20 of the 21 chief officers in Nakuru County have been vetted. And of course, that now brings in another issue of contempt of court. And we're hearing this morning that the speaker to the county assembly might be summoned, of course, in court to explain some of these issues. Of course, that is something we'll also be following up to understand what is happening. So, of course, basically that is it. Governor Susan Kihika really facing setback after setback, even as she tries to come up with her government going forward. But, of course, we'll be giving an update on the same from Nakuru.
Right. Thank you so much, of course, Dalma Sakali, for that in-depth report from Nakuru County. I want us now to go to our INM studio and talk to Jeff Kirui on what's happening on the political scene today. Good morning, Jeff. Jeff? Well, apologies for that. I think there's a bit of a technical hitch there. But I want us now to talk to Dennis Aseto. He is just following up on the COP27 that is just ongoing and almost over. Dennis, good morning. Let's talk about Solutions Day. What can you tell us about that?
Today, Fatia, is the day where parties get to sit down, discuss what they've been discussing for the past 2 weeks. So let's talk about the issues that have been brought about by climate change, what needs to be done, how are we approaching in regards to funding, how will that trickle down to countries who need help. Also, a key important thing to note is yesterday there was an agreement that was arrived at with regards to loss and damages. And there is a Santiago network that was agreeing upon that will now create a framework on how people who've been badly ravaged by climate change will get assistance. And people who have been mentioned word for word is people, local communities, the indigenous people have been mentioned in that report. So we sit and see how now that will be implemented moving forward. Also on biodiversity yesterday, it was really a key important factor that was discussed. You see, we are known to be killing vultures left, right, center, but we don't know the importance of vultures in the society. Remember that vultures over the past around 50 years, they've been destroyed, they've been killed to a point where they were facing extinction. But remember that in the wild, they are in charge of eating toxins, that is preventing us from getting rabies and anthrax. So in the entire biodiversity and ecosystem, we need vultures in our lives. But it was just a good conversation. And even as COP27 comes to a close tomorrow, we now sit back and see the report that have been agreed upon, the implementation process, the loss and damages. Remember, even today as we speak, Governor Nyong'o in Kisumu has just launched a tree planting exercise. Every 10th of every month is a tree planting exercise in Kisumu. He aims to grow around 500,000 trees, and President William Ruto also big on tree planting as well, saying that he wants to plant 5 billion trees by 2032. So the entire conversation is here. We are to jump on it because, like I keep saying, Mother Earth is our home.
Right. Dennis Aseto there, of course, just telling us about COP27 and saying that Mother Earth is our home, right? So let's go to Jeff Kirui, who's at INM Studios, to tell us about what's happening on the political diary today. Jeff, I hope you can hear me now. Tell us what's happening on the political scene today.
Very good morning, Fadia. Indeed, most of the focus now has shifted to the bicameral parliament, that is the National Assembly and the Senate. specifically for the Kenya's representative in the East African Legislative Assembly. And today, members of parliament will be voting. The exercise is set to start in the next 10 or 15 minutes in the Senate, and at around 10 in the morning it will kick off at the National Assembly. Remember, Kenya has 9 slots in Iala, and the ruling coalition, that is Kenya Kwanza, has 5 slots based on the numbers they have in parliament. And of course, Azimio's side has 4 sides. Yesterday, there was a parliamentary group meeting chaired by the president at State House, who was accompanied by the deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, and they agreed on the 5 names that will be representing the coalition in the East African Legislative Assembly. And the 5 are Hassan Omar, who contested for the Mombasa gubernatorial seat but lost. He was contesting under UDA. There is the former woman representative of Nandi County, that is Zipporah Kering. There is a politician, Fred Muteti. There is a former nominated Senator David Sankok, and former nominated member of parliament, rather, that is David Sankok, and former nominated Senator Falhada Deko Iman. The Azimio side has fronted they are of course getting 4 slots, but they fronted 12 names. ODM will be getting 2, Jubilee 1, and Wiper 1. For ODM, they have fronted Winnie Odinga and Suleiman Shabal, who contested for the Mombasa gubernatorial, who had interest actually, but withdrew his candidature for the Mombasa gubernatorial race. For Jubilee, there is a former Kieni member of parliament, Kanini Kega. There is Jeremiah Kioni, who is the secretary general of the party, and Fatuma Gedi, the former woman representative of Wajir County. For Wiper, they are fronting Kennedy Musyoka, who is the son of the Wiper, the son of the party leader of Wiper, Kalonzo Musyoka. So those are the dynamics that will play out today. They will be voting, and of course, whoever will be voted by the biggest number of members of parliament will be picked to represent Kenya in the East African Legislative Assembly, rather. So that is what will be happening today in the political scene, and we will be covering, of course, the intrigues that will be taking place within the August House. Fadia.
Right, Jeff, thank you so much for that. Of course, just giving us a brief on what's happening on the